Hello everybody, today we are going to discuss the fourth chapter of your Flamingo, that is The Rat Trap by Selma Lagerlof. So here I am pronouncing this word as Lagerlof because she is a Swedish writer and that's why this pronunciation. The theme of this story is poverty and isolation can corrupt a man. So here the main character is a peddler, a rat trap seller, and he turned towards evil due to poverty and isolation. That means he was a poor person, he was isolated by the society, and that led him to commit thievery and adopt evil ways in his life. So that is, poverty and isolation can corrupt a man. And second part is, the second point is, kindness and compassion can change an evil person into good one. So later on what happened, he was treated in a very kind and compassionate manner by Edla Wilmanson, the daughter of the ironmaster, and that good treatment actually brought him back into the right path of his life. He was turned a good person again. So he was not actually an inborn bad person or evil person. It was not just ingrained in him. He was, that evil thing was the product of the circumstances that he faced in his life, and that's why he resorted to bad ways. So here actually these things tell us that how the story shows the two parts or two sides of human life. One is corrupt and evil, the other is good one, and how the circumstances play a major role in one's life in shaping one's character. So this is all about the story, and let's see now how the story begins. So it begins, once upon a time there was a man who went around selling rat traps made of wire. So of course this rat trap seller, as I said, we are calling him rat trap seller, so his job was to sell rat traps. So what he would do, he would just go around, he would wander and he would sell those rat traps. And he met them at the odd moments with the material he got by begging at the stores or big farms. So how he would make those rat traps, he would use the material, the material which he get by begging. And where he would beg, he would go to the big stores, he would go to the farms, and by begging, whatever material he would get, with the help of those materials, he would make the rat traps. But even so, though he was working hard, he would roam around here and there all around, and he would collect the material, he would make the rat traps. But even then, the business was not profitable. Yes, even after working so hard, the business was not profitable, and so what, he had to resort to petty thievery and begging to keep his body and soul together. So here the word resort to means to take recourse of, to take help of. So he would have to take the help of begging and thievery. Means he would beg, he would even thieve, a bit of small kind of stealing he would do to support himself, to keep his body and soul together, to make both ends meet. But even then, even after doing all this, it was not at all good for him. It was, he was not in a good condition. It was like what, his clothes were all tattered, ragged clothes, and what, his cheeks all sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. So that was the condition. It seemed as if he had not eaten for days. He would seem so starved and cheeks all sunken. So his condition, the physical condition even, was not very good. So the writer says, no one can imagine how monotonous life can be to a vagabond. Yes, definitely vagabond. He was a vagabond. Vagabond means a person who just roams about aimlessly, a beggar sort of person. So one who has nobody to take care of and nobody who would take care of him. So the life becomes actually all listless and mechanical. His life was such, all mechanical, all listless. And one day he was trudging, he was plodding. Plodding means walking with heavy steps, trudging, as I said. So he was walking along the street, and he suddenly he got an idea. He just fallen into a line of thoughts. And what was that? The whole world. It seemed to him quite interesting when he got this idea, it seemed to him quite interesting. And the idea was the whole world, with all its lands and seas, cities and villages, is nothing but a big rat trap. So quite amusing. And it existed for no other purpose but to set baits for poor people. Now, baits is simply temptation. Just as what, we set a goat for a lion. So it is something like that, the temptation to catch somebody. So this world offers riches and joys, food and clothing, heat and shelter, everything. Similarly, the rat trap offers what? Cheese rinds and bits of pork. Now, these cheese rinds and bits of pork, why? To tempt the rat into the rat trap and to catch it. So as soon as one is tempted to touch the bat, what happens? It comes in upon him and everything comes to an end. Yes, of course, the whole world is full of such kind of things, and the moment you are tempted to test or try anything, what? You are trapped. You are in the trap. So just there is a similarity between the world and the rat trap, and that similarity he is pointing out here. And we have a question on this at the back of your chapter, that how does the metaphor of rat trap serve to highlight the human predicament? Predicament means a difficult situation which leaves you with no choice. So how we need to explain this comparison between rat trap and the world. So what, the world had never been kind to him, and so it gave him unwanted joy, unusual joy. Actually, he would be very happy thinking of the world in a very evil manner, bad manner, because nobody treated him well. And it became his cherished pastime. It really helped him pass his time, good recreation for him. And during his dreary ploddings, dreary, very dull, monotonous, he would think of the people who were caught in a snare, or who was circling around the bait and would be about to be caught. So he would enjoy that, thinking of the people. Why? Because people treated him badly. So it would give him joy when he would come to know that one who treated him badly was about to be caught or has already been caught. So thinking all that, he would be very happy. He would enjoy all that. Now, what, one day he was walking, or say trudging, walking with heavy steps. He came in sight of a cottage, and it was actually dark, so there was no one else, no house. So he just went and knocked. And what happened? There was an old man. He opened the door, smiled. Unlike the faces which actually, those people who made a wry face looking at his face. So unlike such people, unlike such faces, this was an old man without wife and without child. And he was happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. He was all alone and he got somebody to talk to. So it was good for him, happy that, okay, he would have some time pass with him and all. He would enjoy some time. So what he did, at once put a porridge pot on fire. Porridge, that is gruel. And then what? Carved off a tobacco roll, just a slice, and offered him. And then he took a pack of cards, and then both of them played mules until bedtime, just a card game. So was given a good treatment there. And not just this, actually, not only he shared his confidences or gave him this kind of treatment, he shared some of his confidences as well. That means some of his confidential matters or secret matters. He told him, in his days of prosperity, he was a crofter. Now, crofter means one who works on land, a tenant farmer. So he worked on land, he worked in Ramswayan works, and he says now, as he is unable to do day labor, it was his cow that supported him. Because now being old, he was unable to do that hard work, that labor work on land. So he had a cow, and that cow supported him. And he said last month he got all 30 kroners in payment. So now he felt what? That The guest didn't believe him. Incredulous. Incredulous means didn't believe. So what he did, he went up to the window. A pouch, leather pouch was hanging there. He just took that pouch, took the 3 wrinkled 10-kroner bills, that means notes, and showed him noddingly that yes, I'm not lying. See, I got really. So he showed it. And here we have a question, and that is, how was the peddler treated by the crofter? How was the peddler treated by the crofter? So that's what we can ask here. And this peddler has 2 variants. One is P-E-D-D-L-E-R and the other is P-E-D-L-A-R, and both mean the same. So what kind of treatment? Definitely what we need to mention here is porridge, tobacco and card, and yes, these are the 3 things that you have to mention. So now what? Next day they got up in good season, that is early morning, and that crofter, he was in a hurry to milk his cow. He had to go, and he thought, okay, now host has woken up, so it's not fair to lie down. So what, he also got up, and then the peddler locked the door. They just parted ways, said goodbye and all. Now after some time, what happened? The peddler returned. Now the door was locked. Actually he had forgotten something, but not of his. Yes, he had forgotten something of the crofter. That means, it's quite simple what I mean. He wanted those 30 kroners. So the door was locked. What he did? He went up to the window, smashed the window pane, stuck in his hand, took that leather pouch and took those 3 10-kroner bills and thrust them into his pocket. That is, put them into his pocket. Now continued on his way. He felt quite pleased at his smartness, very happy that how smart I am, that he took 1 month to earn that 30 kroners and I just in one smash. He was very happy and enjoying, but he didn't dare to continue on the public highway. Of course, he could be caught. The matter could be out. People could be after him. He could be caught. So what he did, he turned off into the woods. So here I must turn it over, change that. He couldn't find the way, so here stole the money and moved into the woods. That's what I am telling you. So what he did, turned off into the woods. In the beginning, it caused him no difficulty. It was all fine. But later he realized that he had gotten into a big and confusing forest. Yes, it was quite dense and dark. And though he tried to keep himself in a straight direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely. He tried, to move in a straight direction, but yes, it was all meandering and circuitous, so he couldn't keep himself on the straight line and just got puzzled there. And then at that moment, he realized his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. And now it was his turn. Yes, it was his turn. He was caught in the trap. And what the whole woods, the whole forest with its trees and fallen logs and thickets and branches seemed to him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. So impenetrable, that is inescapable, unbreakable, inviolable. So it seemed that he couldn't escape. So now what? It was the month of December. So the darkness was descending and yes, it was enveloping the whole atmosphere. So it increased his gloom and despair. He, of course, was caught in the forest and he didn't find the way out. So it increased his gloom and despair. Definitely there might be other creatures as well. So he was getting desperate and all. So finally, when he found no way out, what happened? He just fell down. And when he sank to the ground, when his head touched the ground, he heard a sound. And what was that? That was it was the regular thumping sound of hammer strokes. So yes, he was quite sure that there must be people nearby. And so what he did, he staggered into the direction of the sound. Now it was a sure sign that there are people around, that's why that hammer sound. So he just staggered, moved in a staggering manner in the direction of that sound. And now here we have the description of that forge, that plant, that factory. So the writer is saying, Ramcharan Works, which are now closed down, was not so long ago a big plant, a large plant with a smelter, a rolling mill and a forge. Smelter, which is used to melt metals, and rolling mill, a forge where we have furnace and all. In summer season, the business would be by water, so they would use some boats, two types of boats are given here. So they are actually flat bottomed boats. So their bottoms are all flat and the sides too are quite flat. So in summer, business would be by water, and scows and barges as given here, they are actually the names simply, and as I said, flat bottom and flat sides. And in winter, the business would be by roads. So the roads would be all black with the dust of charcoal just sifting through the charcoal crates. So that was the thing, that was how the business happened. Now it was some days before Christmas Eve. So one evening, the blacksmith, the master blacksmith and the assistant, they were sitting there on the bench and waiting for pig iron to be brought and put on the anvil. Now pig iron, you know that there are two types of iron. One is pig iron and other is wrought iron. So they were waiting for pig iron to be brought and put on the anvil. Anvil is that metal platform on which these blacksmiths keep that hot iron and then hammer it. So that is called anvil. The cobblers also have anvil. So what they were waiting. Now and then one of them would get up and go to the furnace and stir that fire with a long iron rod. Of course, to keep it glowing and properly just going on. So it would be done and then would return all perspired. Of course, we can imagine the heat there. And as was the custom, he would wear a long loose shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. So that was the custom. And on that day, actually, there was a lot of noise. What kind of noises actually? One, that charcoal boy shoveling charcoal into the maw of the furnace, M-O-W, maw, that is mouth, with a lot of clatter. So that sound. The crackling of fire, that sound. Then the west wind, the wind blowing, that sound, which actually spattered rain against the brick tile roof. So that sound, and the sound of waterfall. So all those noises were there, and it was on account of perhaps all those noises that no one noticed until he stood very close to the furnace. And they came to know when he entered the forge and stood very close to the furnace. Only then they could realize and understand, yes, somebody has come. And it was quite natural actually when one has nowhere to go, one is in forest and you see some light escaping through sooty panes. So one is attracted. So he too was attracted to that when he saw that light coming out. So he went there to warm himself and rest in comfort. Now these blacksmiths, they glanced at him only casually. They thought, okay, might be someone, just an intruder. And he looked the way he should have looked. That means he was kind of beggar and he looked just like a beggar. How? All tattered clothes, that long beard, and what? Bunch of rat traps dangling from his shoulders. So just like a beggar. He seemed just like that, and he asked permission. The master blacksmith nodded a hearty consent. You can see they were waiting for pig iron and nodded a hearty consent. So, master blacksmith nodded a hearty consent. That means haughty. Haughty is proud. Consent is permission. So, okay, without honoring him with a single word, as if like it was quite difficult for him to utter a single word and just give him permission and let him sleep there. So, in that arrogant manner, proud manner. Of course, he was not there to talk. So, what he did, when he was permitted, he went and slept. Now, here comes the master. That is the iron master I am talking of. This master blacksmith is a kind of supervisor or manager, and iron master is the owner of the firm. So he was quite an ambitious person, and he wanted that good iron should be shipped out into the market, and for that he would do inspection, rounds of inspection, that the work was done well. And on that day, he was on one such nightly rounds of inspection when he saw what? That ragamuffin, tall ragamuffin. Ragamuffin is wanderer, a vagrant, a vagabond, a peddler, had eased his way so close to the furnace that steam rose from his wet rags. So, eased his way so close to the furnace. Actually, what? He was all perspiring, all tired, and he just went and lay there close to the furnace, so steam was coming out. Now, the other blacksmiths, they didn't even deign to look at him. Deign, that is even pretend. They didn't even pretend to look at him. This master, he didn't do that. What he did, when he saw that, okay, a person is lying there, he went up to him, and what he did, he took his hat away. It was drooping, that is down, bent upon his face to cover his face. So he went close to him to have a closer look at his face and took his drooping hat. And the moment he did that, the moment he looked at his face, what he exclaimed, he was all shocked, and he said, "Niels Olof, how you do look. Niels Olof, how you do look." He was all surprised and shocked. And moreover, not just he, the peddler too was quite shocked and surprised. Now, why? Because he had never seen the iron master and nor even heard his name. And he was saying, he was addressing him as Niels Olof. Now, who this Niels Olof is? So, first he was shocked, but then he thought, what if he didn't try to undeceive the iron master all at once? No. He thought, if he thought of me as some acquaintance, then what? He might throw a couple of kroners on me. He thought actually he got 30 from there, from that crofter. Now, if he thinks of me as some acquaintance, then I may get some kroners from here as well. So that would do well for me. It would be all fine for me. So that was the reason that he didn't reveal the secret or his identity. So the question here is, why did the peddler not undeceive the iron master all at once? Why did the peddler not undeceive the iron master all at once? Now you might be perhaps surprised or thinking that why I am pronouncing it as iron master. Generally people pronounce it as iron master, but exactly it is iron master, and that is the reason. You can in your way, but this is the difference. So you won't find it in dictionary. Okay, so that is the reason. Now what? that he thought that he might get some from this ironmaster as well. Now he tried to get in the moment, and he said, "Oh yes, God knows how things have gone downhill with me." It means like changing the tracks and just matching the tune, just tuning in with him. So he said, "No, that was a mistake." Who? The ironmaster. It was a mistake that you shouldn't have resigned from the regiment. If only I had been there, I wouldn't have allowed you to do so. Actually, this ironmaster was thinking of him as his old regimental comrade. That means one of his old friends in army. So that's what he took him to be. And so he said, that was a mistake. You shouldn't have done that. Now he might be thinking that, why should I have resigned? Actually, I didn't have any job. And yes, of course, he didn't have any job. He was mistaken. Who? The ironmaster. He was mistaken. So he said, "Now you come with me to my house." But the peddler was not at all pleased by this invitation. Not at all pleased by this offer. He said, "I can't even think of it." All alarmed. Quite naturally, he was thinking of his 30 kroners. Going to the manor house was like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. Definitely, long stay with the ironmaster would reveal the secret about him, and then he might be handed over to the police. All his money would be gone. So he was afraid that his secret could be out, it could be revealed, and that's why he didn't want to go to the house. So here, of course, we have a question on this, and it is, why was the peddler not pleased with the ironmaster's invitation to go to the manor house? Now, what does this mean actually, manor house? Here, manor house is the house of the ironmaster, and otherwise manor house means the house of the chief person of a locality, that is one who is quite influential, rich and powerful. So that is called manor house, and here it is the house of the ironmaster. So what? Okay, he didn't want to go with him. He just wanted to be allowed to stay in the forge, and then he would leave inconspicuously, that is unnoticeably. He just wanted that permission, then simply he would move away from there without telling anybody, not telling anybody about his departure and all. And the ironmaster thought that he was perhaps afraid of his dirty clothes, or he was feeling embarrassed about his dirty clothing. So he said, don't think of such a nice house or fine house that you can't show yourself there, you can't come there. See, Elizabeth is dead, as you might have heard. Now, who is this Elizabeth? Because he didn't know, even the ironmaster hadn't heard his name, and he was saying, you might have heard, you might know. How could he know? But okay, of course it is about his wife. And then he said, my 2 sons, because he thought him to be his acquaintance. So he said, my 2 sons are abroad, and he and his daughter, they were alone, they were there at home. He said, we were talking that there is nobody, there is no guest with us on this Christmas. So you come with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. That means, okay, come with me, we'll enjoy Christmas, we'll celebrate, have fun and all. But he was adamant. He said no, and no. So finally, okay, that when he denied, so the ironmaster turned to the master blacksmith. He said, It seems Captain von Stele preferred to stay with you tonight. Now, who is this von Stele? Von Stele is, of course, Lagerlof. Now, why these two names? Lagerlof might be the nickname and von Stele might be the real name. So that's what we can infer from the story. And Stenstrom is the name of the master blacksmith. And saying this, what he turned on his heels, took to his heels, and while going away, he laughed to himself. And the master blacksmith understood what he hadn't said his last words. Now, this is important for us. Who hadn't said his last words, and why did he think so? So, the question here is, he hadn't said his last words. Why did the master blacksmith think so? Why did the master blacksmith think so? So, answer is very much clear. Being the ironmaster's employee, he knew his nature very well, that if he had decided to do something, he would do that. So if he had decided to take this man home, he would do that willy-nilly. That means whether he wished or not. And yes, it proved to be true. How? Because it had not been long, they heard the sound of carriage wheels. And who was this time? It was his daughter. And he thought she had better powers of persuasion than he himself had. Yes, she could definitely do that. So, she was modest and shy, not very pretty, followed by a valet, V-A-L-E-T. This means servant or personal attendant. T is silent, pronounced valet. So, followed by a valet, she entered. The valet, the servant, was carrying a fur coat. Atmosphere was just as it had been earlier. The master blacksmith and the assistant were sitting on the bench. That fire was there in the furnace. And moreover, that peddler, he was just lying there, just sprawling there on the floor, using that pig iron as his pillow. And he had a very strange habit of sleeping with one eye open and the other closed. Now, quite strange. And why this has been expressed or conveyed so? The reason might be that he didn't have a sound sleep. So to convey this, the writer might be suggesting that he had a strange habit of sleeping with one eye open and the other closed. So his face was covered with a hat, and the moment she saw him, she went up to him and took the hat away. Now he jumped up, he was all alarmed, and then she had to just cool him down, and she introduced herself. She said, "I am Edla Wilmanson. My father told me about you, and then I took his permission to come here and to take you home." So, and she even sympathized with him, seeing his bad condition. She said, "It's sad, Captain, that you are having such hard days." And she looked at him with compassion, with her heavy eyes, and then she realized something. What? She realized that the man was afraid. Either he had stolen something or had escaped from jail, because he seemed all afraid. Some problem was there, some spelling mistake was there with him, it seemed to her. And so what she did, she just assured him, gave him an assurance. And what was that assurance? She told him, "You may be sure, Captain, that you will be allowed to leave us as freely as you came. Just stay with us over Christmas Eve. So that was the assurance given to him by Edla, and he was, yes, ready, quite readily he agreed. So here we have another question, and what is that? It is, how did Edla persuade the peddler to accompany her to the manor house? So how did Edla persuade the peddler? Now, as I told you, she just gave him an assurance that you will be allowed to leave us as freely as you came, only stay with us over Christmas Eve. And of course, that was the only fear he had. When he got this assurance, what was the problem? He was being invited, and now he was all ready. He said, I didn't think you will bother yourself with me, that you will trouble yourself for me. He simply just took that coat, threw it over his rags, and followed her out into the carriage without casting so much as a glance at the astonished blacksmiths. You can see. So what does this mean actually? Simple, it is quite simple that earlier the blacksmiths were behaving like anything, quite arrogant, and now it was his turn to behave in the same manner, tit for tat. So what he did, he just followed her out into the carriage. Now when they were going to the manor house, he had evil forebodings, evil thoughts, bad ideas, ominous thoughts in his mind. Why the devil did I take that fellow's money? Now I'm sitting in a trap. So he had such kind of thoughts that what would happen now? And there at the house, the master, the iron master, he was all waiting for him, like having already was fresh after bathing and all that, and quite happy. He thought with satisfaction of his old regimental comrade whom he had come across so unexpectedly. So he was quite happy to meet his old friend, and he was telling his daughter when she was laying the table, that means arranging the things on the table, he was telling her that first we must see to it that he should get some flesh on his bones. That means we should take care of his health. 2, we should see to it that he should do something else than going around selling the rat traps. That after all, he is my friend, the friend of the iron master, and how could he be doing such kind of work? So something else. Listening to this, daughter said, it's queer. Queer means strange. It's queer that he was having such hard days. Last night, I couldn't think that there was anything about him to show that he had once been an educated man. So she meant that I couldn't believe that he had been an educated person, and it's quite strange that how can this happen to a person, means so bad that one could go into or get into such a condition. So it was difficult for her to believe, and father convincing or persuading her, saying that, that have patience, little girl, have patience. Actually, he was trying to tell her, he was trying to make her understand with these tramp clothes. Tramp clothes means those vagabond clothes and all. The clothes he was wearing all tattered. So as soon as the clothes are removed, all his tramp manners will also be removed. When he is all washed and bathed and cleaned and shaved by the valet, it will be all right. He will see something different. But who was going to see something different? Of course not daughter, it was the father himself, because father had recognized him as what? His old friend. So the thing that I must tell you and disclose here is, he was not the real friend of Ironmaster. He was not his regimental comrade. He was just a peddler. Ironmaster was mistaken, and he had wrongly taken him, or just recognized him as his old friend. Otherwise he was not that. And when they were talking like this, what happened? The door opened and that person entered. And now he was wearing a dress which actually belonged to the Ironmaster, just white collar, starched shirt and shoes. And now, though he was so well groomed, all good, perfect and good clothes, looking fine, but the Ironmaster was not happy with that. See, when he was ugly, dirty looking, Ironmaster just brought him to his house as his friend. But now when he looked good, Ironmaster didn't like it. He was not at all pleased. And the reason was very much clear. Now everything was clear. The curtain that had fallen, that was now lifted. It was all clear. He understood that when he saw him in the uncertain reflection of the furnace, he was mistaken. But now when he stood in the broad daylight, there was no mistaking him to be his old friend. It was very much clear. The curtain was lifted now. And so what? He thundered. What does this mean? He roared. What does this mean? Realizing who he is. And that peddler also understood that the splendor was over. And he didn't try to dissimulate. That is, he didn't try to hide anything. He simply said, see, I didn't pretend to be anybody else but a poor trader. See, I didn't do anything. I didn't say that I am your friend, I am Lagerlof. I never said so. I was a peddler, I was a trader, poor trader, and I am, yes, just now even, I didn't pretend to be anybody else. It was you who took me as your friend, and you just, I didn't just ask you to be, or just carry me, or just accompany me to your house. He said, okay, so far nothing wrong has been done. At the worst, I can put on my rags, those tattered clothes, and go away. Simple, no problem at all. So he said, see, that was not quite honest either. You could have said that I am not Lagerlof. Why didn't you say that? So let's see if the sheriff would like to say something in this matter. Means he wanted to take the matter to sheriff. Now what is sheriff? Just as we have police to maintain law and order situation, similarly sheriff. So what he wanted to take the matter to sheriff. Now so far he was listening. He was listening very carefully and he didn't object. But when he mentioned about sheriff, I must move the slide on to tell you about this. And so what? Yes, we are here at this point, and this requested to accompany to Manor House. These are the things we are discussing. So now what? He just took a step further and thumbed the table with his fist. After all, he was a philosopher. He has met that retro philosophy. So what? He just thumbed the table with his fist and he said, now, Mr. Ironmaster, I must tell you how things are. See, the whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. And the things around us are like cheese rinds and bits of pork, offered to drag a poor fellow into trouble. These are simple, just what? The purpose is to drag a poor person into trouble. That is the sole purpose of all these things around us. And so if the sheriff comes and locks me up for this, then you must remember, Mr. Ironmaster, that a day may come when you yourself would like to have a big piece of pork, and then you'll be caught. So if today it's my turn, tomorrow it will be yours. Remember. Now, Ironmaster liked this. He said, oh, that was not so badly. He said, yes, it's quite fitting, a good one. So he liked it and he said, so for this, let's leave Sheriff alone on this Christmas Eve, but you get out. You get out as soon as possible. Now, as he was going away, what happened? The daughter came in and closed the door. Now, father was all shocked. When he saw this, he was all shocked and he said, what in the world are you doing? And the daughter also unable to understand what to say, what not to say, because she did it on an impulse. So now what to reply for this? And the reason actually behind this was what? She had felt so happy and Christmassy that morning that she was unable to get out of that idea all at once. She was thinking that they would celebrate Christmas, she would make delicacies, they would enjoy it all. So she was unable to, when all at once father said, now you get out. So she was unable to come out of that thing all at once. And that was the reason she had interceded for the vagabond. And so here we have a question on this, that why did Edla intercede, that means interrupt, for the vagabond? So why did she intercede or interrupt for the vagabond? What was the reason? So this para, what I read out, is the answer for this. And now what she did, she continued just explaining that thing to her father, that I'm thinking of this man here. He just walks and walks around the whole year round. There is not a single place where he can be at peace or have some rest. Wherever he turns, he is chased away. People chase him away, drive him away. He is interrogated. So I would like to give him just one single day of peace. That's what she said. Now father tried to protest. He mumbled. But now what? After all, it was daughter's desire. So that couldn't cross his beard. It couldn't come out. It got suppressed. And daughter continued. What? Of course, it was all a mistake. We are mistaken, but we ought not to chase away a man whom we promised Christmas cheer. That means we invited and we are chasing him away. Now that's not fair. So at this, father said, you do preach worse than a parson. It's quite important. What does this mean? You do preach worse than a parson. Explain. So what does this mean actually? So here, parson, parson means a pastor or father. And what does he do? He preaches. And what she was doing, she was preaching, sermonizing her father, going beyond what a common person would do. She was preaching her father, defending a total stranger at her own risk, just as a parson or a pastor would do. So that's why father said so. Now what? She understood that father had surrendered. So what she did, took him by hand and seated him there and asked him, sit and eat. He couldn't think of anything else. He thought, okay, what was told or said to him, he did simply that he started eating. But he was thinking that why? why she's doing all this to me? Like all strangers, we don't know each other, then why this? And after that, that eve passed as usually as it did at Ramswan Works. Means he didn't do anything, he simply ate and slept. Perhaps never had such a sound sleep and never had such a good meals. So he enjoyed that, slept all forenoon there on one of the sofas in the servants' quarters. In the afternoon, he was woken up to have his share of Christmas fare. Now here F-A-R-E, fare, that means food. So he was woken up, okay, he had his meal, went back, again slept. In the evening, he was woken up again, just come and, now this time not to eat, actually it was to enjoy the decoration. They had done some lighting and decoration. They wanted him to come and enjoy that decoration. He came and stood there blinking his eyes as if even the candlelight hurt him. Went back. Again, he might have slept. Next, in the night, he was aroused again to have his, definitely the last meal of the day. And what? He took his meal. After that, he went to each one present there. Actually, he was offered Christmas fish and porridge. Went to each one present, said thank you, good night. And when he came to Edla, she said the dress he was wearing was to be his Christmas present and he didn't have to return that. And not just that, she said if he would like to have one more such day of peace at a place where he could be sure that no evil would befall him, he would be welcomed again. That means she was extending him one more invitation, an advance invitation for the next year, next Christmas. And he just looked at her in wonder. He was all wonderstruck. He just stood aghast that why this to me? And definitely might have gone back and slept again. Next morning, the father and the daughter got up in good season, early morning. They had to go to church for some early morning service. When they were returning at about 10, the daughter was sitting with her head hanging. And she, what was the reason actually? All dejected and depressed. The reason was at the church they came to know that one of the crofters at Ramswan Works had been looted, robbed by a person who went around selling rat traps. And yes, it was very much clear that, of course, the crofter, their man, was looted by the man who was staying in their house. Now, father just making fun of the daughter or just teasing her, taunting her, saying, what? Oh, that was a nice fellow you let into our house. So, just in a light manner, taunting her and all. And God knows how many silver spoons might be left in the cupboard. So, this is what the father said. Now, when they reached home, father asked the servant right from the gate. And the servant said, father asked, okay, had he gone? He said, yes. Had he taken anything with him? No. Instead, he had left behind a package which Miss Edla Wilmanson was to be so kind enough to accept as Christmas present. So she didn't do, he said he has left a present for Miss Edla Wilmanson and she should accept it. That's what he had done. He hasn't taken anything with him. And she, when she saw that gift, she just gave a cry of joy because it was so badly done up that the contents can be seen at once. The packing was bad and so she could see what was there. And what was there in the package? There was a rat trap. And not just that. There were the 3 10-kroner notes. And not just that even, there was a letter as well written in his large, jagged handwriting. And what did he write in that letter? He wrote, "Honored and noble Miss, since you had been so nice to me all day long, I would also like to be nice to you in turn. Because you treated me well, so I should also treat well, or I should behave nicely to you, because I don't want you to be embarrassed by a thief on this Christmas season." He now felt really very bad about her, that what he had done, it was quite embarrassing. So he said, "You can give this money back to the man, to the old man who hangs a leather pouch at his window for the poor travelers. And this rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in the world's rat trap if he had not been raised to the level of captain." Yes, of course, it was all due to Edla Wilmanson, who treated him so nicely, just like a captain, that he felt himself like a captain. He was all transformed, and he could mend his ways, he could behave well. And finally, written with friendship and high regard, who? Captain von Stele. So the question is, was he really Captain von Stele? If not, why did he sign himself off as Captain von Stele? So it's a good one, and the answer is very much clear. The reason that he was treated so well by Edla, that he could acquit, he was all transformed, he could acquit himself of the sin that he had committed. That means he could free himself of the sin that he had committed, and he, through this signing himself as Captain von Stele, he wanted to show that he was altogether changed person, and it was a token of gratitude, we can say. So this was the reason he signed himself off as Captain von Stele. So it's an important question, can be asked, and this is what you have to answer. Now, apart from these, some questions are given at the back of your chapter. So I must say, 4th and 5th, these two questions are good one as short answer type questions. 1st and 6th, these two questions are good ones as long answer type questions. And then in talking about the text, you have 1st and 2nd again as long answer type questions. So apart from the questions already discussed in the chapter, you must prepare these questions as well, which I just mentioned, given at the back of your chapter. So this is all about the rat trap, and now we are out of the rat trap. Thank you very much.